Plants, well, no two plants are exactly alike. Even plants of the same species aren't exactly alike, although there's a lot of uniformity as well. But the environment can dictate what a plant will look like. And you've probably seen that before. Your plants that you have at home, do they move toward the light? Do they move toward the light? Have you ever noticed that? Thumbs
Yeah.
up. Right? Yeah. So they will move toward the light. And some of them will be shorter, some of them will be taller. So this plant here is a fanwort. And it's very interesting. It's kind of a weed, but it grows, that just means that it grows very prolifically. But to others, it's a very nice aquarium plant. And it has what's known in the plant world as plasticity. Actually, our brains have plasticity as well. But it can alter itself in response to the environment. So these parts, this part of the plant, those are leaves that sit on the top of the water. And these are modified leaves that are underwater, but they still undergo photosynthesis. So it's altered itself in response to its environment. Oh, I thought that got in there. No, somebody sent me these pictures of plants because when they knew I was teaching about plants, they might look like bottoms, possibly. So you had some plants that you showed today, which is awesome. And the leaves that were on those plants have adaptations with their environment. So some of them were like this one, this plant here, which the leaves are thicker. They're thicker leaves, so they're more likely to retain water. You might find those in dry environments. We'll look at flowers a bit later on, highly adapted to attract pollinators like this bee. Some leaves don't look at all like leaves at all, like this spine of a cactus. That's a modified leaf. Some plants in nitrogen poor soil will eat insects, kind of. So this is a sundew plant. You find them around here in bogs, and if you get a chance to go to the Camosun bog, which was one of our trips last year, that is by 16th and Camosun, and it might not have been the time of year to see them, but here's a sundew. They're called sundew, but they have these little dewdrop looking extensions that look like they might be tasty to oh good, you got back in, Eduardo. So it look like it might be tasty to an insect, but it's sticky. So the insect comes along, gets stuck there, it gets absorbed for the nitrogen, but it's still a photosynthetic plant. So lots of really cool adaptations. But by natural selection, a lot of characteristics of morphology vary little among plants within the same species. So for example, this fern could be a lady fern or a bracken fern. I can't quite tell, but it's very uniform. Its adaptations are really perfect for the environment in which it finds itself. So all of the plants are very, very similar. So just like if you've taken human anatomy physiology, maybe you've taken it already or you took it in grade 12, the plant body is also a hierarchy of organs, tissues, and cells, just like the animal body. So the cell being the smallest unit of life, but together cells work like tissue. They work in synchrony, like muscle cells, for example. And tissues get together to form organs. If you think of animal organs, what do you think of? What are some animal organs? You can write that in chat or
Heart.
Eduardo and Andrea. Eduardo
Stomach?
first.
Oh,
Stomach.
stomach?
Sure. Yeah. Sophia, heart. Yeah. So the stomach, for us, the stomach digests food, nutrition. Where does the plant get its nutrition from? The soil and also the air for carbon dioxide. But, the nitrogen, calcium, various minerals that the plant needs gets from the soil. Does it digest it? Not really. It absorbs it. It absorbs nutrients. And the heart, that's a good one too. The heart for an animal pumps fluid, blood throughout the body. You notice the leaves that you presented, they had veins. And those veins are either branched or parallel. That distinguishes the kind of plant it is. But those are for a transportation of water and nutrients, not blood. But plants are all multicellular. And there's three basic organs. We call them the roots, the stems, and the leaves. And every vascular plant, we're going to be looking at vascular plants. There are non-vascular plants that you've seen, mosses. Mosses are the first land plant, still tied to water. Mosses can't reproduce without water, and they don't have veins. So you notice mosses don't grow very large, but other plants do. They're called vascular plants. They're terrestrial. And what's interesting is that they get nutrients from two very different environments, below ground and above ground. So if we're looking at a plant, this is a potted plant that's been split down the middle so that you can see the different environments. Above ground, what's above ground? Air, rainfall, temperature, variation. What's below ground that the plant needs? What's below ground that a plant needs?
Minerals?
Minerals, good, yeah. Water.
Fungus. Sometimes they need like a fungus to break down. I think it was like nitrogen.
Yeah, symbiotic fungi. Good. Nutrients. So the basic organs, the root systems and leaves are organized in what's called a root system and a shoot system. It's a root system, root shoot system, two systems. So looking above ground, looking at the anatomy of a plant, there's the reproductive shoot. That's the flower. A terminal bud. This is a bud that will grow a new stem. Between where the stems grow from, here and here, this is called the node, another node, and this is the let's see, sorry, I erased it by mistake there. This is the internode, and this is the node there. That's the terminal bud. Here's another terminal bud. Of the leaf, we call this part of the leaf the blade. And this part that attaches to the stem, a petiole. And this little guy here, that's an axillary bud. not a terminal bud, but an axillary bud. And this large piece in the middle is the stem. So that's all above ground. So that's the shoot system. The root system consists sometimes of a tap root. Not all plants have tap roots. Some of them have branching roots and lateral roots. And also there will be a number of root hairs. So we're going to look at roots first. So the function of the root is, one function is to anchor the plant. So it anchors the plant in the substrate. And there's all kinds of different substrates. There can be boggy, soft substrates. There can be harder clay kind of substrates. There can even be rock substrates. The soil can be deep or shallow. So there's a lot of variation in roots for that reason. It anchors, it absorbs minerals and water and stores organic nutrients. So those are the three main functions of roots. And there's a lot of variety. So the absorption of water minerals occurs near the root tips. There's vast numbers of hairs there. These are all root hairs. And the purpose of the root hairs is to increase the surface area of the root. Because, I mean, sometimes these root systems are servicing enormous plants, trees that can be 360 feet tall. So having a large surface area is important. And what Andrew mentioned before were symbiotic fungi. Their purpose is to increase the surface area of the root. And lots of roots are quite modified in very interesting ways. So this plant is in the tropics, and the soil is wet, and it props itself up with roots like that. And if it sinks into the soil, it's got these roots here to keep it propped up above the soil. Those are called prop roots. Loads of variation in roots. This is a storage root. These roots are strangling aerial roots. So this is a plant that's growing on another plant, and this is a strangler, the strangler roots. It can kill the plant on which it grows, but often it doesn't because it needs the plant for support. Aerial roots. These are known as buttress roots. I saw those a lot in Costa Rica and Bolivia. So two tropical places where the soil is not, the organic layer is not very deep. There's not a lot of nutrients to be had. The trees are large, they grow very fast, they need a lot of support. And that is what these buttress roots do. They butt out, basically, and provide support. These are really odd roots. Like, you're like, okay, where's the tree? Well, the tree is way over here. They're mangroves, but roots there, and mangroves grow in tidal water. So the tide comes in, the tide goes out. Roots must have oxygen. So just like the rest of the plant, the roots are going through cellular respiration. They need to have energy. They need to have oxygen. If the root is in water, this is why when you overwater plants, they die. They die because they drown. So in the case of mangroves, if the roots were never to be in the air, the plant would drown. So they have a root system that sticks right out of the water. So that's how they can get their air. These are all different kinds of roots. This is a taproot. This is the part of the taproot with many, many branches, lateral roots. This is a taproot, a carrot. Do you recognize it? The rabbit in you recognizes the carrot. So one large storage taproot with lateral roots. And of course, a carrot is a selected kind of a plant, selected by humans. And these are also storage roots. And they have little lateral roots at the end. So an adventitious root, the word adventitious in this case means a type of organ of the plant, but it's derived from a different organ. So adventitious roots grow from something other than the root. Interestingly, in this case, it's the stem. So this part is the stem, and the roots are basically modified stems that act like roots. So they're pseudo-roots, really. They're not from root tissue, but they act like roots. This is a kind of adventitious root. It grows from the stem. Oh, that's not very clear. But it's an ivy that grows up a tree. And you've probably seen ivy grow up the side of buildings. How do they stay attached? Well, they throw out these adventitious roots that have a really strong, gummy kind of resin. It's called lignin, and it sticks to the side of the building. Here's another mangrove. I just wanted to show you this for these structures here. Those are pneumatophores, and that's how the root can exchange gases with air. Gas exchange. So in this picture here, the roots are quite high above the water, and that's so that they can get air and exchange gases. This is just another example of a climbing plant that has these little roots, and they attach to their substrate as it climbs up. I think when I was making this lecture, I was a little obsessed with roots. Here's more roots. These are strangling roots, but they have to reach the ground at some point in order to absorb nutrients. There's another strangler. And it's interesting. I went through Stanley Park not so long ago with my friend Carrie, and I think he thinks I know everything because I teach biology. And we went to see this tree that looks like it's being strangled by roots. But really what was happening is that the trunk of the tree itself was just growing around the trunk that was there from a different tree. More pneumatophores. But if you are studying these, you have to watch out for this animal here. So if you're thinking of studying in the mangroves or down in the swamps of Florida, you got to watch out for the alligators. So that was all about roots. Moving on to stems. A stem is an organ of a plant. It's an alternating system of nodes. That's where the leaves are attached, and internodes, the stem segments between the nodes. So here again is an apical or terminal bud. Apical are the buds that are at the very top of the plant. The lateral buds are also known as axillary buds. If the branches are branching out like that, you could have a terminal bud there as well. Here's your leaf and petiole. So an axillary bud has the potential to form a lateral shoot or branch. A terminal bud is located at the shoot tip and it causes elongation. So we're going to do this in a subsequent lecture about plant response and hormones, but I'll just tell you right now that the terminal buds have a hormone that can suppress the axillary buds here. And so if you're pruning, for example, a shrub, you don't want it to grow tall. You just have to cut off the top terminal buds. And that way the axillary buds rather, won't be suppressed and it'll grow out to the side. And there's loads and loads of different modifications of plants. So modified stems. So here, for example, is a strawberry plant. And the strawberry plant have runners so that they can reproduce asexually from nodes along the runner. So the stem, instead of growing upwards, grows lengthwise. Those are called runners. Those are modified stems. A rhizome is a modified stem as well. It grows underground. So this is a ginger plant. So this is the horizontal stem. And as it grows, it can sprout up asexually another plant that will grow from the stem, but it'll grow vertically. That's known as a rhizome. It's a modified stem. Tubers are modified stems, tubers. They have eyes. So I don't know if you've ever noticed in your potatoes, they have these spots that are invaginated there. They're clusters of axillary buds. So that's why if you planted one of these, you grow a bunch of potato plants. But not all potatoes are modified stems. Some of them are roots. The difference is the roots don't have eyes. If you planted a root storage vegetable, like I think regular potatoes don't have eyes. I'm not sure now if it's the regular potatoes or the sweet potatoes, but whichever one it is, if you plant it, it won't grow because it's not a modified stem. It is actually a root. This is a bulb, and this is the stem. It's teeny tiny. It's been reduced quite a bit. These are the roots. This is the Shrek onion I was talking about. And these are all leaves. They're modified to store starch. Just like these are modified to store starch, just like these are modified to store starch. So that's the storage for the plant. Lots of different modified stems. Leaves are the photosynthetic organ. And I like this one because you can see the frog and it shows how thin the leaf is. So of the leaves that you showed me, a lot of them were quite large. What is the advantage of a large surface area for a leaf? What is the advantage?
Greater photosynthesis.
Yes, more opportunity for photosynthesis. Yeah. But they can also be damaged more readily and lose more water. So the leaves of the plants that you showed that were temperate, the leaves were smaller. They generally consist of a flattened blade. So this is the blade part. And a petiole. The petiole joins the leaf to a node here to the stem. So this is the stem part here. And petioles can be long or short, or quite modified. If you've ever had celery, celery is a modified petiole. So it's been selected by humans to be something that we like to eat. So interestingly, what we're looking at today is a type of plant known as an angiosperm. An angiosperm is a flowering plant. And the seeds are covered with fruit. It could be a dry fruit, it could be a moist fruit. The other type of plant that we're not looking at is called a gymnosperm, which means basically naked seed. Those are your evergreens. So those are plants with cones. But the angiosperms themselves, they divide into two kinds of plants, monocots and dicots. And that refers to a cotyledon, which is in the seed. Monocots and dicots, they differ in the arrangements of veins. So if you noticed in your leaves, some of the veins of the leaves were branching and some were parallel. The vascular tissue, monocots have parallel veins. Dicots are branching. Here are the main differences. So a monocot, mono meaning one, has one cotyledon. So the cotyledon is one. That's inside the seed. And a cotyledon sometimes becomes storage for the seed. This particular one has two cotyledons. It's called a dicot. A monocot's veins are parallel. So as you can see here, a lot of, I think it's irises have parallel veins, whereas the dicots have branching veins. And they may be doubly branching as well. As far as the stem goes, if you were to take a cross section of the stem of a monocot, the vascular bundles, that's the xylem and phloem, the veins, they're kind of complex. So they're arranged around the outside like that. And there are also some scattered in the center. But with dicots, the vascular bundles are arranged in a ring. Very simply, and that's it. The flowers of monocots are often, the floral parts, like the petals, are in multiples of 3, and dicots are often in multiples of 4 or 5. And the roots are different too. So the monocot has a fibrous root system. So you can see there's no taproot there, but the dicot has a distinct taproot with lateral shoots. So angiosperms divide into these two groups that differ morphologically. And so of the leaves that you showed, there's different kinds of leaves. And we use that leaf morphology to distinguish them and to classify them into different species. So this leaf here, this is an oak. You can always tell an oak They're very distinctive. They have these lobes like that. Yep. A little petiole. That's a simple leaf, just one leaf attached to the petiole. In a compound leaf, the blade has leaflets. And you can tell they're leaflets because there's no axillary bud. So there's no axillary bud at the base there. There's a little axillary bud here. Yeah, and this is the petiole. And this is a compound leaf. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves. And then you have doubly compound leaves. So the leaflets are divided into smaller leaflets. So again, here's the petiole. And this one leaf has been divided into all of these little leaflets. Doubly compound. Can leaves be modified? Oh, yeah. So there's some really cool modifications of leaves. Like this is a pea plant here. And see these tendrils? Those are the ones that wrap around a structure for support. Those are modified leaves. We've seen the modified leaves of a cactus. And then you showed some succulents, or they're often stone crop. And these are called phallus leaves. And interestingly, this is a leaf. This is your, oh, what's it called again? You know, the Christmas plant. What's that called again? Starts with a P. Everybody's always giving them to you for Christmas, and you're like, what am I going to do with this plant? You know what it's called? I want to say ponderosa. It's not ponderosa. Ah, oh, sorry, I can't remember. But these are not the petals of the flower. These are leaves. And their purpose is to attract pollinators to the flowers, which are here in the middle. So those are leaves pretending to be petals. Poinsettia, thank you very much. Yeah, a poinsettia. Poinsettias are beautiful when they're red like that, but they do go green. And then they're just sitting around and they're looking green. they're still nice plants, but you're supposed to be able to like put them in the dark for a certain period of time for them to flower again. I tried that once a long time ago. It didn't work. So some modified leaves have different functions. We looked at these already. So tendrils of a pea plant, for example, for support, spines of the cactus, storage leaves of the succulents for storing water, and reproductive leaves, and bracts. Oh no, sorry. Reproductive leaves are here. The red parts of the poinsettia are called bracts. Sorry, that's a bract. Didn't know that. To attract pollinators. Yeah. So let me stop there for a moment.